Right, let's leave these bearded dudes alone and let's get down to business. Hi, my name is Kaspers, and this is my video presentation about metalcore. Right, so what is metalcore? Well, the genre of music is a blend between hardcore punk and different forms of extreme metal, like thrash, death metal, melodic death metal, and so on. Hence also the name metalcore. It is considered by many to be the pop of metal because of how well it is marketed towards youth and culture. The lyrics for metalcore songs usually represent a teenage life in one way or another. Some love stories, anger, depression, or the cliched nobody gets me type of stuff. There are of course exceptions. Not all metalcore songs are about the same subject and written the same way. However, the majority of them are, and it's hard to ignore the fact. Music-wise, this genre focuses on screamed and growled vocals. However, clean vocals are also used during bridge or chorus of a song. Heavy guitar riffs, breakdowns, and double bass drumming is also a part of a generic metalcore song. Development and history of metalcore. The fusion happened in the 1980s in the United States, more specifically California, where the term metalcore was coined and used to describe bands that were influenced by thrash metal and hardcore punk. However, I have to note that crossover thrash and metalcore are not the same thing. They both have a different sound, but tend to convey similar meaning. Crossover thrash formed before metalcore but influenced the modern metalcore genre. To explain lightly, crossover thrash would be considered the grandpa of metalcore. Therefore, an important part of the metalcore history. To give you a small insight of what a regular crossover thrash show looks like, here's a video. This clip is from a show in 1985 by a band called Dirty Rotten Imbeciles. There are numerous bands that had a similar sound like the one you just saw in the video. However, only a handful of them are gonna stay remembered and become influential. Bands such as Cro-Mags and Agnostic Front. In 1986, Agnostic Front released the Cause for Alarm record that was a genre-defining album and until today is a very strong crossover thrash record. It serves as an influence for the genre as a whole. Later in the 1990s, bands like Converge and Earth Crisis emerged and took everyone by surprise by borrowing the speed and brutality of death metal and incorporating it into a hardcore punk sound. Earth Crisis released a genre-defining album in 1995 called Destroy the Machines. Another huge milestone for the genre was 1997 when the band Shai Hulud released their first full-length album that served as a stepping stone for metalcore bands later on in the decade.
Oh God, I have to let you die. I have to let you face. So spare me the accusation.
In the early 2000s, metalcore started to gain attention from people outside the metal and hardcore communities, and this is when independent labels started to sign metalcore bands. One of these labels was Roadrunner Records. At the time, it was a small but a very established label. It was launched in 1980 in the Netherlands, and originally was importing North American metal records into Europe. It signed a lot of different bands and jumped on the metalcore wagon relatively early. One of the most well-known bands that Roadrunner signed was Killswitch Engage. Killswitch was one of the first bands to fuse melodic death metal with hardcore punk, showing a more melodic approach to metalcore. The band formed in 1999, and only 3 years after, on 21st of May 2002, the band released their second full-length album called Alive or Just Breathing, that gained major success, and the first metalcore album to appear in the charts. Around this point in time, metalcore as a genre started gaining commercial success, and more bands popped up out of nowhere and surprised the industry. MySpace and metalcore. MySpace changed the music industry without a doubt, and is probably one of the most important reasons why metalcore had such an impact on the youth culture as it did. Metalcore and MySpace had something in common. Their main audience was teenagers. MySpace was founded in 2003, and it allowed for bands and artists to use it as a platform to promote themselves and achieve relative success without having the need for a record label, and generally allowed for better communication between the fans and the artists. For metalcore, this meant freedom. There were no more entry requirements to gain success. I mean, sure, you had to know how to sing and scream and to play instruments, but now you could record in your garage and a person on the other side of the world could listen to it. That's something bands couldn't do before without being involved with people related to the music industry. Before MySpace, metalcore was mostly just for the so-called outcasts of society that weren't brutal enough for metal and not normal enough for everything else. After MySpace, well, for the same people, but on a really huge scale. One of the many success stories, thanks to MySpace, was American metalcore band The Devil Wears Prada. They released their first EP on MySpace and instantly became the leaders of the pack, and soon after got picked up by a record label to really hit off their career. Metalheads have always been known for their extensive need for band merch, and core kids were no exception. Since the rapid increase of people who know about and listen to metalcore, the demand for band merch has also increased majorly. Some might even argue that in many cases the fashion associated with the subculture comes first and the music second. In theory, marketing metalcore merch to teenagers and young adults is not much different from the model pop music industry is using to sell trendy clothes and accessories. More or less it is about a selling lifestyle associated with the bands and the musicians, and the kids are loving it. In the early years of modern metalcore, bright neon colors and weird drawings were a common design for most band shirts and accessories, which was a direct contrast to other metal genres where dark colors have always been dominant. However, just like fashion trends change and people move on, so does the core fashion. Nowadays, metalcore fashion focuses more on darker colors and is closer to what fashion in other metal genres looks like, and also resembles the trends from mainstream fashion culture, which is an indicator that the invisible wall between mainstream and alternative is slowly fading. Creating an environment where the clothes one is wearing would not be a giveaway of their musical preference. Metalcore has subtly but surely taken over the longest running tour in the United States, Vans Warped Tour. Every year they have a different lineup and have shows in many locations scattered around the States. Warped originally was associated and showcased with punk rock bands, but these days focuses mainly on different alternative music genres with big emphasis on metalcore. Some of the big names in metalcore that have played Warped Tour are A Day to Remember, Of Mice and Men, Parkway Drive, August Burns Red, and a lot more. The guitarist from the band Saint Alvia Cartel got asked a question in an interview what he thinks about the drastic lineup change in Warped Tour in the last couple of years, and he gave this answer. Warped Tour is a place for teenage kids to go and hear all their favorite bands in one day. It wouldn't make sense for it to be the same tour in 2007 as it was in 1997. These are the bands that kids like, and the tour is smart enough to grow and adapt to that. Jacob Bannon. Jacob Bannon is the lead vocalist for the band Converge, that many consider to be the band to influence the modern metalcore sound. He co-founded the band when he was only 14 and has been in the hardcore scene even before that. He also founded Deathwish, an independent record label, and has signed many bands all over the United States. He is also a freelance artist for the independent music scene, and he also did an album artwork for Converge's Jane Doe. Adam Dutkiewicz. Adam is without a doubt one of the most influential people in the scene. Not only was he a guitarist in one of the biggest and most well-known metalcore bands, he's also a producer and sound engineer and has helped shape the scene of what it is today. He has worked on numerous very successful records as a producer with some of the best bands in the genre. Examples: As I Lay Dying, An Ocean Between Us, August Burns Red, Thrill Seeker, Parkway Drive, Horizons, Unearthed, The Stings of Conscience, and The Devil Wears Prada, Dead Throne. A lot of the musicians from the bands I mentioned earlier in the video have majorly contributed towards the genre and the subculture. However, I feel that Adam and Jacob have left a legacy that is going to be remembered for a really, really long time. The language of metalcore. As we've talked in class about how music is communication, a language per se, that speaks through emotions, metalcore is exactly that. It might not have deep philosophical or political agenda behind it, but it definitely captures the essence of what it's like to not exactly fit in. The genre itself is something that many true metalheads refuse to acknowledge, and it's looked down on, and for those who aren't into extreme music genres, it might resemble noises and some dude trying to sound like something from the Exorcist movie. But for many fans, it's the sound of comfort and reassurance. You either love it, hate it, or don't get it.
I'm a bit obsessed with leaving my own mark in this world and leaving some sort of positive mark. What my motives are, I think that's more for a psychologist to break me down a bit and to put it out there as to what's brought me to that place. But I want to leave a positive mark in this world. I want to create art from some of those negative experiences and some of those positive experiences and share it with the world. But so people can take something from the emotional weight that I've felt as a person, and they can take something positive away. Art and music for me has always been something that's made me feel not alone. That's made me feel like I had a place or I had a friend, especially in a really dark time. It's not about finding that attention or acceptance by others necessarily. It's about finding peace within myself. And